Yeah, they're kinda dead and kind of monstrous and kinda want to eat your face off. Greetings and salutations, viewers. I'm StarPrincessHLC, and here we are with another review of School Live, this unusual anime that poses as a moe romp with four girls and their dog and their teacher, but as it turns out, there's some dark undertone to it with a zombie apocalypse. Spoilers ahead, especially, so again, I'll have a link in the description below where you can watch all 12 episodes on Crunchyroll for free. It's a really neat anime, and I would advise you checking it out yourself before checking out these reviews. So with that, let us begin with the second episode of School Live. Come on, sleepy bones, time to get up. You gotta survive another day of ignorance. Senpai no notice you. In this particular episode of School Live, most of the focus on this one particularly goes around the character of Kirumi. She is the one with the dark hair and the pigtails who's always walking around with a shovel. A lot of it seems to focus more around her character and kind of her struggles, which I think is actually good considering we didn't see much of her in the first episode of the anime. It was more focused obviously around Yuki because she's the main character, but seeing a bit more on Kurumi's side, it was actually a nice change of pace. I'm guessing now I know what you're doing with that shovel, murdering zombies. But essentially, what was going on with Kirumi was it was kind of showing her role in the whole zombie apocalypse thing. As it turns out, she's kind of the muscle of the group. That's why she carries around the shovel. She uses that to bash in the heads of zombies. She is essentially the fighter who's always checking around the perimeters and making sure none of the zombies get through the barricades. So it's interesting to see kind of that dynamic where you're like, well, how are these four girls able to fend off all these zombies? It turns out it's really just one girl, Kirumi, who's whacking them in the head with a shovel, either through, I guess, sneak attacks, like using those little balls that Toromaru was playing with in the first episode, throwing one of those to try and distract the zombies long enough to bash him in the back of the head. But even then, Kirumi is definitely the athletic one of the group who can kick some serious butt when she wants to. Well, at least now we know what those balls are for. They're not just Toromaru's little plaything. And through flashbacks, we actually get to see why it is Kirumi uses the shovel to kill zombies. As it turns out, back before the school got taken over, she was in love with a guy in track. She was, I guess, part of the track club, and she mainly did it to track this one guy. She called her senpai. But as it turns out, he got zombified, and she was forced to kill him with a shovel. So that's kind of why she's the main fighter of the group and why she's always walking around with that shovel and essentially killing off zombies, is because, I guess in a way, she's revenging or getting revenge against her lost love. So that's kind of an interesting little thing that we learned, and we're only in the second episode. I can't imagine what else we were going to learn from these four characters. I don't want to hug senpai. This is one time I don't want you to notice me. But it wasn't completely about Kirumi. There was also a bit where they were running low on supplies. Like, I find this really interesting. Like, apparently the school, despite the fact that it's so dilapidated with the windows broken and everything, it's still holding fairly well to the point where these four girls and the teacher and the dog can essentially live out their days there without any real issues from the zombies. Like, obviously without with the barricades, that's keeping them at bay to an extent, but somehow they still have supplies of food stored away. They have electricity, strangely enough. Like, the school is equipped with like these solar panels and such, and I'm guessing even with like the garden at the top of the roof is where they're getting a lot of food as well. So it's like, how is it that this school is so well stocked to this point where 4 girls, a dog, and their teacher can survive through the zombie apocalypse like that? It's really interesting. I hope we get more detail into why that is, because that is very unusual. How a school is, it's almost like they were prepared for something like this to happen, to have all this set up that people could survive there. So this school, despite the fact that it's so beat up, still has electricity and rations for them? What the heck? How is the school so well equipped? But obviously, a certain point, their supplies are starting to get a little low. They need to actually go look for some supplies. Ironically, still while in the school itself, and that I find interesting. They have a store, and the store looks like it hasn't been touched in forever. Like, there's still plenty of supplies there, and it's like, again, how is this school so well stocked? But essentially they're running low, at least from where they are, and they have to go get some more food, which is, ironically enough, outside of the barricade. Oh, she's keeping down all the supplies. Oh, but they're running low. That's bad. But the interesting thing is they actually bring everybody through on the barricade. What essentially happens is Megane is teaching Yuki in the classroom, because remember, Yuki still believes that the school is, how it was before the outbreak. She's lost in her own mind and doesn't realize the weight of what has happened outside. So she's still going to school. She's still, going through her studies and such. But Megane and her start talking about what they're going to do for summer break, because I guess that's, at least in her mind, that's coming up. And Megane kind of suggests, like, well, how about I would mind a test of courage, which I guess it's probably like they go, I don't know what a test of courage actually is. I'm guessing it's like they go on a little quest to see how brave they are or something. Like I don't know what that is, but she suggests a test of courage. I'm guessing it's like some little game where they test how brave they are or what have you. I don't know what it is, but Megane suggests that to Yuki, and she decides to tell the other 3, like, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a test of courage. And the other ones are like, well, I guess we could use this as an excuse to go get some supplies, since we're running a little low, and we don't want to leave Yuki behind on her own just in case something happens. So all 4 girls, and then eventually the teacher shows up, all of them go down into a different area of the school that's been barricaded, and they go to the store looking for more supplies, again with Yuki not even knowing that there's anything wrong. She just thinks she's essentially just buying candy. Let's go headfirst into danger that I don't know exists! Yay! And then, later on, they decide to go to the library, mainly because Risan said, let's get some more schoolwork for Yuki to learn, because obviously I'm guessing they're running out on things to teach her while she's still essentially in her mind thinking everything's back to normal. So it's like, well, we'll get some books for Yuki, and Miki wants to find another book to read because she's kind of the smart, learned girl of the group. Yes, you insist on being in school still despite a zombie apocalypse, so you're now going to suffer. But essentially they all go down to the library and something happens. It turns out that there was a zombie in the library, which was strange. I guess they wanted to look for some comic books themselves. I don't know. It was kind of weird, but there was a zombie in the library. Oh, I guess some zombies had the same idea. Maybe they're reading The Walking Dead. But fortunately, the group managed to take care of it, although I found it interesting that during that section, Yuki was looking at the manga section, because she's kind of that girl, and she sees the zombie. I guess she thought it was a ghost. Like, it seemed like she has some semblance of what the heck's going on, but not to an extent. Like, she thought it was a ghost. She didn't realize it was a zombie, but she was scared of what was going on. And fortunately, Megane was with her, comforting her and telling her, like, you know, stick by your friends. Everything is going to be okay. It almost kind of, like, seemed like Megane was trying to, in a way, kind of help Yuki cope with things. Like, I found that kind of interesting. Like, she was comforting her and saying, like, you know, stick by your friends. It's almost like Megane was, like, in a way, subtly trying to break down some of Yuki's coping mechanisms of delusions to what's going on around her, which I thought was a nice little touch. But again, it doesn't last very long, unfortunately. Yuki's kind of right back to being like, it was a ghost, whatever, I'm going back to class, whatever kind of mindset. So, it does seem like, despite the fact that it seemed like Kurumi and Risan kind of more are okay with Yuki being delusional, saying like, well, if she could be happy in this horrible event, then more power to her. Miki is the only one who seemed to be like, this isn't right. Like, we need to try and make sure she comes to terms with this. Is it right that she's just essentially acting like nothing happened? Like, I get that, but it does seem like, in a way, at least Megane, in a sense, is trying to subtly break down the barriers of Yuki's delusions and have her accept that the world isn't how she sees it. Oh no. How does she even... what does she even... she thinks it's a ghost. She doesn't think it's a zombie? So she kind of has some inkling of what's going on, it seems, but not to an extent. But those were the major things that happened. Obviously, there was a few moments where there seemed to be hints that, like, the zombies might have some kind of sixth sense about them. Like, they kind of have memories of their past before they were zombified and are kind of living out how they remember things when they were still alive, which I thought was kind of an interesting concept, because you don't really see or hear that kind of stuff in other zombie stories. It's always that they're just mindless, shambling corpses, essentially trying to eat whatever they can find. But in this one, they're trying to kind of give more to the zombies by saying, like, maybe they remember things about when they were alive and they're just kind of running on instinct in some sense. That's kind of an interesting little concept to throw into a zombie apocalypse, that maybe there is still some semblance of humanity in these monsters. Hey look! The zombies are playing soccer! That's amazing! They're very good, although it'd be a very boring game. But overall, this was really a really interesting episode. Kind of seeing, like, how the girls are kind of living day by day, how they're dealing with Yuki's problem, while also dealing with, obviously, the main problem outside. You know, how the group kind of works together, where it seems like Risan is kind of the head girl, trying to keep everybody in line, trying to keep track of supplies. Kirumi is the big fighter of the group, mainly from her own personal demons with the zombies, but also because she seems the most physically fit and eager to do so. And then Miki kind of seems like she's the more sensible one of the group. Like, I have a feeling like she's the one who's desperately trying to push Yuki into kind of accepting reality as opposed to just living off in her fantasy. So it really is neat to see, like, all the girls' dynamics together and how the four of them, well, technically six if you count Hiromu and Megane, how everybody is kind of dealing with this problem. So it really is interesting. Like, they took something that you would think would be really cutesy and adorable and kind of spin it on its head a little. So I'm definitely interested to see what's going to happen in the next episode. Like, it's really interesting, and the characters are definitely very likable. Even during some of the more difficult times, it's really cutesy while still, you know, it tugs at your heartstrings a tiny bit, just because it's like, these girls shouldn't have to be dealing with this problem. Damn, girlfriend. But with that, that's the end of another review. Overall, I'd say still check this out. Again, I would say you're better off checking it out for yourself before checking out these reviews. So hopefully you've been doing that, but just as a reminder to do so. Hopefully we'll be getting to the next episode of School Live soon. But for now, this is StarPrincessHLC saying thank you very much for watching, and have a fond farewell.